Another reason why I left religion, Christianity, fundamentalism, and the church is because the church teaches satanic panic. Now, for those who weren't around in the 1980s or maybe need a refresh on what a satanic panic is, it was basically a period of intense moral panic in the 1980s and early 90s, characterized by widespread, unsubstantiated claims of satanic ritual abuse, particularly involving children. This panic led to numerous accusations, investigations, and prosecutions. It was often based on recovered memories or suggestive questioning techniques with little to no credible evidence. So if you're aware of a lot of the right-wing religious conservative viewpoints that people who are not heterosexual or lean into the LGBTQ plus alliance, they're trying to groom kids. That, of course, in the last few videos we talked about as utter, complete nonsense based on statistics, arrest warrants, and convictions. The popularized gay people are trying to groom children is as popular now as the satanic panic was in the 1980s. If you've heard of Moms for Liberty or any hate group that basically wants to remove anything from children's access, education, media, news, discussions, anytime parents want to remove what they call not age appropriate or grooming information from their kids' access, is basically a modern version of satanic panic. So how did the 80s and 90s, how did the satanic panic become a thing? Well, it was basically a response to what conservative or religious people deemed the 1960s sexual revolution. And a lot of religious leaders were upset and afraid of how hedonism, humanism, and liberal agendas, not that they have agendas, but according to these people, they were ruining the traditional nuclear family structure. So how did the satanic panic, what did it target? So it targeted influential books, social changes. It brought up the rise of the religious or Christian right movement. There was a public confrontation with abuse and grooming. There was a belief in external threats. There was a hostile belief in the 80s that there were outside agents or satanic cults or Satan were trying to seek and steal or harm children or young people. If you remember the very popular Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D for short, you would realize that in the 80s, they believed D&D games were basically the Ouija boards of its time. Now, I'm not sure what conservative people have against fantasy, but there doesn't seem to be the ability to understand the difference between fantasy and reality. Playing fantasy games that include magic or sorcery or Wicca doesn't make anybody any more likely to go outside and point a wand at somebody. If Harry Potter didn't turn everyone into witches, I don't think anything could. And dressing up as a wizard is not the same thing as being a wizard, any more than on Halloween dressing up as a ghoul makes you a ghoul. It's all social and pure fun. And even if somebody gained an interest in witchcraft due to Harry Potter or a book, that doesn't make somebody interested. They already have an inclination towards something to begin with. It's like watching violent video games and movies doesn't make you a horrible killer. If that were true, I've seen every horror movie there is. And I've never been tempted to do anything that is remotely illegal or violent. The problem with the Satanic Panic, it didn't just rear its ugly head, cause trouble, and then submerge itself back into a creepy lake, kind of like the Loch Ness Monster. It comes alive every few years, but it's like a chameleon. Instead of focusing on board games, it focuses on moral depravity, like the purity culture in the 90s. Then in the 2000s, it morphed into a hatred for Harry Potter. In the 2010s, it morphed into like vampires and werewolves and the supernatural. I mean, every decade it changes into something different. In the 1950s, it was rock music. In the 1960s, it was a fear of drugs, hippies, and modern humanism. The 1960s and 70s people were afraid of communism and were very anti-establishment. There's nothing wrong with those things as long as you obey the law and treat everybody with respect and everyone is safe. The issue is when conservative right-wing people and religious people think that the world is going to hell because we've changed society rules or we're progressing toward a better tomorrow. Women having more rights and men being held accountable for abuse, children finally being able to talk about horrible parenting. And right-wing people would say this is the decline into moral depravity. In my opinion, is a start toward moral equality. So there were a lot of false accusations against people due to belief in satanic cults. Dungeons and Dragons did not create this kind of moral panic, but it was a tool that right-wing people used without its consent. There were conspiracy theories. I mean, you look at crime and like murderers, a lot of them had pentagrams or blamed Satan. This did not help the Satanic Panic at all. What long-term consequences did the Satanic Panic cause? What about traumatized families, wrongful convictions, ruined lives? So the Satanic Panic, there are very many similarities within modern conspiracy theories like QAnon, which also promote the idea of powerful, evil cabal operating in secret and targeting children. There are similar themes and rhetoric resurfacing online. If you want to do a simple Google search, it's definitely something very interesting to look at. The Satanic Panic is basically a moral panic consisting of over 12,000 unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse starting in North America in the 80s. And it's still